All right, go ahead and roll for perception.
I got a 13.
Hey, that's pretty good. With that, you can tell there's some fantasy situations going on. You hear some adult language, and with that, you can tell this podcast probably isn't for kids. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Dungeoncast. I'm Brian.
And I'm Will.
This is the podcast where we talk about everything Dungeons & Dragons, from eldritch enchantments to ethereal elementals. And today, we're talking about sorcerers.
Prepare yourselves. Cast fireball. The Dungeoncast.
Okay, Brian. So we've covered wizards in this program.
We did.
Tell me what you know about sorcerers.
They're like wizards, but they're also not like wizards.
Yeah, that's pretty apt. That's pretty apt.
I remember I've had the itch to play the wizard that we built in that episode for a long time.
Oh yeah, I forgot about
And
that. Yeah.
he's like a drunk. He's like scruffy and like
Oh yeah,
does like performance magic and stuff. And
he's really rough around the edges. I like him. I like.
He had the
character we
capacity for great good, but he's a piece of shit.
Right. Okay.
But yeah, sorcery. From what I understand, you don't really have to. And I've been trying to get it straight because I've been mixing it up for a while now.
It can get confusing sometimes, especially for the uninitiated of D&D.
All this damn magic.
Yeah.
Sorcery is something that's more innate than wizardry.
Yes.
Yeah, and you don't have to study. Maybe to refine yourself, you might have to.
Yeah.
That's what I'm gathering.
So while wizards treat magic much like a science or mathematics, something to be learned, to be studied, to be understood, and then to be theorized on and then set into practice, sorcerers are born with innate magic within them.
Yeah. Okay. This reminds me of a Full Metal Alchemist, and I feel like I've been bringing that up a lot lately, but there's the original series and there's Brotherhood.
Yeah,
and in the original anime, there's like an extra movie at the end where
I saw it.
Ed gets sent to, and spoilers, our world to do, and he's doing science and he's really good at it because it's like alchemy, which is magic.
Yeah, and that's that's another thing in D&D, like alchemy and artificery. That's another very studied and very scientific like approach to magic.
Right. Okay.
Sorcerers are innately born with these abilities through whatever bloodline they have, but not only are they born, they aren't just born with the ability to do magic. Being a sorcerer is more than that. The magic within these individuals is so potent and palpable that it wants to be used and will be used.
It's trying to get out.
Very often sorcerers are born of tragedy because their power gets out and causes something destructive.
That's like in Harry Potter when like they get high, emotions run high and stuff, and things just happen.
Harry Potter wizards are way more akin to sorcerers than D&D wizards.
Yeah, it's like a blend up, maybe.
It is a little bit of a blend up. There is a study of it, and they do hone it. But the fact of the matter is, like, you cannot gain magic abilities unless you were born with them.
You got it or
like,
you don't.
Harry is not a wizard. Harry is a sorcerer.
For sure then. Okay. In D&D.
In D&D terms, yes, definitely. So
don't step on J.K. Rowling like that. What she says goes, man.
Sorry. Okay, so the sorcerer is an interesting class. I originally didn't really care for it too much. I think I just didn't like the idea that so in fourth, let's go back to 4th edition because that's where I started, and remember too that not only was 4th edition my first edition, but I was a new player.
Okay.
And as many new players tend to be when first getting into this game, you get a little bit more obsessed with the meta of the game than you probably should. I'm referring specifically to like damage output.
Yes.
And in 4th edition, like we discussed, there were certain roles that classes would have in combat. And while wizards were controllers and awesome in their own way, sorcerers were strikers and dealt way more damage. And I just didn't like the fact that like the wizard who spent his years honing his craft, learning how it worked, gaining the abilities, and working for it really hard, just couldn't hit as hard as the dude who just was born that way.
Yeah,
I just didn't like that.
More reckless in nature. Also,
Right.
it seems like since
Yeah,
the magic
definitely.
is trying to just like jump out of you.
It's true, and sorcerers often have to deal with the chaotic nature of their magic. But But like since then, I have learned a whole lot more about D&D and expanded my taste way outside of 4th edition. And I've come to like the Sorcerer a lot. It's still probably my least favorite of the arcane classes, but that's not to say it's because I don't like it. I really like the Sorcerer and think it's awesome. I just happen to like all the other ones a little bit more.
For sure.
Because I think they're all really cool. So Sorcerers weren't introduced into the game until 3rd edition. It's actually the first class that we're talking about that didn't come about until 3rd edition.
Okay.
And I thought that was interesting because Sorcerers aren't as intuitive as all the other classes. Like you probably before D&D have come across characters that fell within any of the classes that we've done before in the show: Paladin, Ranger, Fighter, Rogue, Wizard, Cleric even. But the Sorcerer is a little bit more off the beaten trail, and I did a little bit of research into like where did D&D kind of get this concept for a sorcerer?
Why are we implementing another magic user?
Right. And because the Sorcerer is a lot like a wizard, like to the point where they have a very similar spell list. And I think in previous editions of D&D they had the same spell lists, but the way they implemented those spells was different. And again, we're going to get into the mechanics here in a minute, but I want to talk about the origin of the concept of the Sorcerer.
Right.
And so apparently the word wizard comes from the word wise and like to learn and whatnot.
For sure.
And
Makes
the
sense.
word mage has to do with the word magician and also has like a professional connotation to it because, magicians, that's their profession.
Yeah,
And
mage might be more of like a, what is it called? An advisor to the king, like Jafar or something like that.
Right, exactly. And whether Jafar was a sorcerer or wizard, I actually don't know. Who's to say?
could say?
But mage and wizard are usually very interchangeable in D&D and in other fantasy franchises, while sorcerer is a little bit separate. Now, the word sorcerer, it comes from a word. What was it called? It was some Greek word, sortiaris or something like that, and it actually had to do with a person who controls or influences fate and luck and the mysterious.
Oh, okay.
So like
unseen forces.
Unseen forces, and
Manipulation of
ununderstandable
that.
sources. And so
like causing bad luck to their enemies and stuff? Or?
I guess. Again, this is just a source word, but like what I'm trying to say here is I think this is very fitting because like while the wizard in D&D and the mage are very learned and considered very intelligent, and they have to learn their stuff.
Yeah.
Sorcerers are kind of like they're just born with it, and it kind of has to do a lot to do with luck and a lot to do with chaos and kind of learning to influence it. And so I think it's very fitting. Also, the Sorcerer comes from like an old style of fantasy that you don't see too often these days, but I like it a lot. It's called sometimes it's called Swords and Sandals, sometimes it's called Swords and Sorcery.
Okay.
And so like as you know, D&D is usually set in like a very medieval type setting.
Yeah.
Very Lord of the Rings-esque, which is predicated on like the concept of the world is ancient and it's seen empires rise and fall again, and magic is ancient, and all these things are really old and it's full of mystery and whatnot. While Swords and Sorcery or Swords and Sandals is more based off the idea that the world is very young and that empires have not yet risen but are on the rise.
Yeah, we're going through our first like rendition of reality, basically.
Exactly.
Like, and the world hasn't ended. There hasn't been an apocalypse yet.
No, there hasn't. And like again, everything's very young, and you're more likely to meet barbarians than you are to meet fighters.
Okay.
You're more likely to meet sorcerers than you are to meet wizards.
Because refined things haven't
come
had
about
time.
yet.
Yeah, okay.
So that's another.
There aren't ancient texts to study about people who've been learning for so long.
Exactly. At this point of time, like the magic users are those who are delving into forbidden knowledge that isn't like known yet.
So sorcery and sandals, that's a different tabletop kind of experience? Or?
No, that's a different fantasy genre. You
Oh,
can
okay.
run D&D in that fantasy genre.
Oh, okay, I got you.
Trying to think of examples of that genre. Have you ever seen The Scorpion King?
Yes.
With The Rock?
Yes.
That's a swords and sorcery fantasy genre.
Okay.
Where it's almost like pre-biblical times kind of deal.
Oh,
yeah, like
okay.
That's the setting of Swords and Sandals or Swords and Sorcery.
Like they are the ancient ones that we would be studying.
Exactly. That's exactly right.
Okay.
So, okay. With all that said, let's dive into the actual class of the Sorcerer. So the Sorcerer
it seems like a physical ability, like a fighter. Like
it
you,
is.
yeah,
yeah, and actually that was it was very well reflected in 4th edition because though charisma is traditionally and always has been for the sorcerer the spellcasting ability.
Yeah.
The secondary and tertiary ability scores for the sorcerer in 4th edition were either strength, dexterity, or constitution,
Makes sense.
because they're having to exert a lot of energy
Yeah,
in honing their
definitely.
craft. So again, sorcerers are born with this ability. The ability wants to come out. Sorcerers don't really have too much of a choice when it comes to becoming a sorcerer. That magic's coming out one way or another.
Yeah.
And so the question then comes like, well, where does this innate power originate from in the sorcerer's bloodline? And the player's handbook gives 2 major bloodlines. I believe the Sword Coast Adventurer's Guide. God, I hate sound. The SCAG, they call it.
SCAG?
For sure. The SCAG
Oh, man.
has the Storm Sorcerer, which is my personal favorite because electricity is awesome.
Yes.
But the major 2, and probably the 2 most staple of bloodlines are in the PHB, and they're the Dragon bloodline, which means that there's dragon blood in your veins. At some point, dragons interbreeded with your people, and you have innate dragon magical abilities because dragons
Sweet.
are innately magical.
Right,
We've
right.
discussed that in the dragons episode. The other one is a little bit more esoteric. Like, it's kind of whatever you want it to be. It's the wild sorcerer, and it's just like it could be anything. Like it's really, really like I've done a lot of reading, and like the wild sorcerer bloodline, it's not tied to any specific like being. It just happens.
It just became like
like
magic crept in.
like something got into your bloodline at some point. You make it up. That's kind of the
all right.
it's very much
for the aspect of role playing, right?
yeah,
That's
but
what it sounds
also
like.
like the wild magic sorcerer, true to its name, is really about chaos. That's what it is. It's the powers of chaos. Now remember how we've talked about how good and evil are tangible forces in D&D.
Yes.
Like there's no denying that there is good and it's a thing that you can do, and there is evil and it's a thing that you can do.
Yeah, and they have their repercussions.
The same goes for law and chaos on the alignment scale.
Cool,
And
okay.
chaos is literally a force within the universe, and that's where wild sorcerers get their power sources. Chaos
From
has
like the energy
influence.
that is chaos.
Exactly.
Yes, okay.
And as such, they have a lot of really chaotic and wild abilities.
And is
Now-
that gonna like when you pick a sorcerer to role play with? Is that gonna like affect how you should build your character? Like I'm picking a sorcerer, so I should be chaotic. I feel like we don't
Well, if
really
you're a
bind to
wild
those rules a
sorcerer,
lot.
if you're a wild sorcerer, you're probably pretty chaotic.
Yeah, you went with that route for a reason.
Yeah. And I mean, if you're a dragon sorcerer, like dragons usually are either very lawful or very chaotic, usually. But I mean, it doesn't matter. It's your game. Like, there's really no rules on it, and I wouldn't even say there's a norm on it. So, sorcerers are just people. They're
Right.
gonna be people.
Exactly. Okay.
So, even though there's really only these 3 official options right now, like that is not usually the case for sorcerers. I'm actually surprised they're taking so long to come out with more official stuff for the sorcerer.
Yeah, has there been Unearthed Arcana on this yet?
There's been plenty, but
Okay.
there's no official stuff
Yeah.
yet. Which is funny because like sorcerers more so than almost any other class traditionally have like a billion different like ways of getting their power. So like right now we have dragon, we have wild, and we have storm, but like there's also fey and fiend and celestial and cosmic and arcane and shadow and
Yeah, I was gonna
elemental.
ask.
Like basically for every like thing there is in D&D,
like all the planes, basically.
Exactly. For all the planes or all the like really magical things, there is much like the warlock with its pacts. There is
represented
a bloodline
by sorcery in some
because
way.
in D&D everything breeds with each other.
Yeah.
So there it is. But yeah, so generally speaking, sorcerers they're born with their magic. It comes from a certain bloodline of some sort. They generally at first have a very difficult time controlling it, and they have to learn how to control it. And they do that through their charisma, which again is your strength of will, like your strength of personality,
Yeah.
your ability to enforce your will on others. So I think it's very fitting that charisma is the spellcasting ability for sorcerers. Is actually charisma is like such a common casting ability in this game. And
Yeah, all the bards do it, right?
yeah, it's bard, paladin, sorcerer, warlock. All 4 of them are charisma casters.
Warlocks.
And it's very
Another
fitting.
day.
Yeah, another day. I love warlocks. It's probably my second favorite caster class. But okay, let's talk a little bit about the differences between wizards and sorcerers outside of that, like when it comes to the mechanics.
Yeah,
because
which spells are they casting? I really want to know, because I picture a sorcerer more like using elemental kind of things because it reminds me so much of bending disciplines from like Last Airbender or...
Yeah, sorcerers often are doing a lot of elemental stuff. I think it's just...
ice walls and shit like that.
Their mechanics really lean towards blastery types of spells, like exploding
Fireballs
stuff,
and,
fireballs and ice and all that. In 4th edition, like it was literally the way they were built. But in 5th edition, like, okay, so they have a lot of the same spells on their list as wizards, like very, very similar.
Right.
But one of the big differences is that wizards learn a shit ton more spells. I mean, way more spells. By the late game, like triple the amount of spells.
Oh, man.
Yeah. But sorcerers don't have to prepare their spells. So
they're just at the ready all the time.
They're at the ready all the time.
Is that how it works with wizard? You have this pool of spells, but you can have so many prepared per day. Okay.
You can only have so many prepared, and you have to choose what they are. And
Right.
also, wizards have a spell book. And if they lose that fucking spell book, they're fucked.
Right.
Yes.
Because they need to...
That spell book is everything to them. Like, sorcerers don't need that. Because, again, the magic's coming out of them.
Yes.
But, again, by end game, I think they only know, like, 18 spells. Like...
Which that sounds like a lot, but what are you at, level 20?
Yeah, level
18?
20. Yeah.
Yeah, it's...
So they
For most of the game, you're going to have how many, do you think? What do you got by level 10, usually, like, if you had to guess?
If I had to guess, I don't know. For the sorcerer, probably around 10.
It seems like if you have 18 by level 20, maybe you should have around 10.
Probably around 9.
Okay.
Known spells.
Yeah.
That's not spell slots. The spell slots are the same for all full casters, except for warlocks, which that's a way other conversation. But all full casters get the same amount of slots. But wizards know way more spells. But have to prepare them. Sorcerers know less spells, but they can do more with those spells than a wizard can.
Okay,
And-
what do you mean when you say that?
Okay, so sorcerers get this fucking awesome mechanic. It's two mechanics that intermingle. The first is sorcery points, which are points they gain as they level.
A pool of resources. I'm finding like almost every class has
Their own pool of resources.
resources.
Yeah, so with sorcery points, I think you start off at level 2, you get 2 or whatever, and you can trade points for extra slots, which is awesome.
Okay, so you spend your pool of resources to get more spell slots.
That's one thing you can do with sorcery points, and that's the main mechanic behind sorcery points as its own solo mechanic.
Okay.
And there's a little chart saying like 2 points equals a level 1 slot, and 5 points a level 2 slot, and so on and so forth.
Nice.
And I think by level 20 you have like 25 sorcery points or some shit.
All right.
So then comes the most important bit of a sorcerer, and this is the thing that makes sorcerers what they are, like compared to the wizards, and this is why they do tend to lean towards the more explosive spells. It's called Metamagic. And I need a drink of water because I'm like dying over here.
Okay. Maybe we should take a rest. Short rest.
Sure, let's take a rest.
We probably should hydrate.
I need to hydrate, so
Okay.
let's take a rest.
It's time. Hey everybody, this is the part of the show where we talk about ourselves and talk about you. So let me start with you guys. Thank you very much. You've made it this far and I appreciate it greatly. Thank you for listening to our show. It means so much. Seeing our viewership go up week by week the way it's been really makes me satisfied with what I'm doing. It feels like my time is definitely worth it because we want to put out good, solid D&D content for all of you. And we have, I know I can speak for Will on this, that we have a lot of fun doing this show. We definitely like putting our time into this, and D&D is great. We have a good time playing. We have a good time talking about it. Yeah. Good time recording about it.
I fucking love D&D. I love it so much that I could talk about it for hours, and that's exactly what I'm doing here. So yeah, like Brian says, thank you guys. It's incredibly encouraging seeing the amount of listenership go up and viewership go up on YouTube, and the subscribes and whatnot. It's a little overwhelming sometimes, but thank you guys so much.
Yeah, definitely. Old listeners, for coming back and viewing us again, thank you. Like we always ask, please tell somebody that you know that you think would like the show. Please tell them about it and let them know that the Dungeoncast is out there and exists, and it might be for them.
Yeah.
New listeners, thank you for jumping on board. We hope you come back next week. And please, if you know somebody that likes D&D and you think would like our show, let them know. And I think we wanted to ask something special of anybody that is listening to us on their iPhone, maybe?
Yes. If you happen to be listening to the show on Apple Core Media or through iTunes or through your iPhone or whatnot, if you could do us a simple favor and just give us a nice review, tell iTunes what you think about the show, because what I found is that not only are most people listening to podcasts on iTunes, but that iTunes really, really pays attention to how many reviews and like how high the stars are on these reviews, and it makes a huge difference for like exposure. And I mean, we want the exposure, and if you think we're worth the time and our show's worth the listen, then I would say please just leave a review. It'll help us immensely.
Yeah, we do host our podcast on SoundCloud.com/The Dungeoncast, but that RSS feed goes to a lot of places, and one of them is iTunes, and that's a big place. We get a lot of listens from iTunes.
Yeah,
so thank you everybody that has a review. So if you don't just want to tell a friend, you want to tell the world, iTunes reviews is a good place to do it. So you can also search for us on YouTube. Our YouTube following is growing very slowly but very steadily, and I appreciate that. So anybody who's watching, thanks for tuning in.
Yeah. Well, I think our video is finally getting up to the part where it's like it's worth watching versus listening.
Yeah, we have some lighting and some tripod work going on, some angles and all of that good.
Mm-hmm.
But just the fact that you are here hearing this, thank you very much.
Thank you guys.
It means
again.
a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think hydration.
Yes,
has
I am
taken
hydrated.
place.
I'm drinking like a bottle and a half of water.
Yeah, my mouth is. I'm going to drink some more.
Yeah. So this short rest, I think, is coming to an end.
All right, guys, we're going to go back to the show. Let's go back to the show.
Let's go. Okay, so let's get back to what I was talking about before my throat started to close up like I was going into anaphylactic shock. Metamagic.
Yes.
Now, just to reiterate, Metamagic is the thing that really sets sorcerers apart when it comes to other arcane casters, and it's really I feel personally that it's the mechanic that makes sorcerers like to lean towards more explosive-y magic.
It sounds like the name of a cool magic shop.
It does, doesn't it?
Metamagic.
Okay, so Metamagic is named thusly because it is more so than almost any other feature in the game, a feature that is really, really geared towards getting into the meta of the game, the actual mechanics of it. And so with Metamagic, what you can do is you can pick up certain Metamagic abilities as you level. Like there's a certain amount. I think initially you get 2, and then at certain key levels you gain more. And you get to spend sorcery points to invoke these effects upon a spell that you're casting. So
okay. So adding shit to spells you already know.
Exactly.
Oh.
As you cast them.
I see.
So,
okay.
Let me see. It's things like improving the accuracy of your spell, or increasing the range of your spell, or boosting the power of your spell, or improving the casting time. Can you imagine like a quickening of your spell casting, so that like a spell that normally costs a standard action all of a sudden only costs a bonus action?
See, I was going to ask you.
So twice.
So like basically you're going to turning actions into bonus actions, turning hit die into more hit die, turning
or damage die, you mean? But
it's damage die.
Yeah.
Sorry, yes, and turning like extending your range and stuff like that.
Not just extending your range, but sometimes like increasing your number of targets.
Ooh.
So like a spell that hits like one
like
or two
an area
targets,
of effect or something like that.
No, I mean like some spells like literally are targeted. So like Eldritch Blast. That's a warlock spell technically, but like would be me blasting you.
Right.
But if I were to use the Metamagic ability, I think it's called twin spell or twin. I don't know. It's something like that. But basically, it's like bam, I could do it twice to 2 people.
Yes, that's awesome.
Or 3, or I don't. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. Sorcerer is like one of the spellcasters I'm the least familiar with, so I don't know the nitty gritty of that mechanic. But like that's the basics of it.
I know there's lots of spells that do like cones, areas of effect. Well,
Yes.
Can you increase that?
I believe
if you're doing
there's
those types of
Metamagic
spells?
where you can increase like the area of effect as well. Yeah.
And the shaping of those things to like, I know that wizards can like shape an area of an effect spell
Yeah.
around their comrades or like around an item of importance.
That's something
or anything,
evocation wizards can do.
but not sorcery, right?
Can't, and I think it's very fitting that sorcerers can't, because even though sorcerers are able to like kind of change the meta of the spells, like sorcerers don't have that level of control that a wizard would have. That's like refined motor skills.
Because it seems like when a sorcerer is doing something, it's always more. Like it's in the direction of more.
Yeah, it's definitely on an increase. Yeah, I agree with that. So yeah, I feel like this is the reason that sorcerers kind of like, I mean, it's just very easy to get into like, I'll just make everything explode.
Yes,
like,
absolutely.
But that's not to say you can't be a sorcerer that totally goes the other direction on that and is more into like illusion and enchantment and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was going to ask. Like,
I feel Metamagic is very effective when it comes to those spells as well. It's just the most common depiction of sorcerers will be evocation spellcasters, if you will. But were you going to say something?
No.
Oh, okay.
What are we on to next?
Okay, so
Were we talking about bloodlines yet?
We're going to talk about bloodlines. And they're not called bloodlines. I keep forgetting. Like, they used to be called bloodlines. Traditionally, they're called bloodlines. I think in this, they're just called origins or something like that. I'm calling them bloodlines. Fuck it. So let's start with the Draconic bloodline, because it's my favorite of the 2 in the PHB.
Hell yeah, that sounds awesome.
Isn't to say I don't like wild magic, but I want to talk about dragons first. So, Draconic bloodlines, again, it's from the fact that you have dragon blood in your veins.
Right.
That doesn't mean you have to be a dragonborn. You could be a human or an elf or something, like, and that dragon could have gotten into your family
Real
ages
nasty.
ago, millennia ago, and it's just coming up now.
A long time ago.
Yeah, and
things got real nasty.
Yes. And sometimes it's when it comes to sorcerers, sometimes it's like there's one sorcerer per generation, or there's one sorcerer per century, or everyone's a fucking sorcerer. Like it's up to the DM.
Every
and
1,000
the player.
years, the legendary Super Saiyan is born.
Exactly.
Every 100 years, the man from the desert is born amongst the females. That's Ganondorf.
Oh yeah, that's Ganondorf. I'm like, what?
It sounds like that.
Yes, yeah, and it can be,
Cool.
or it could just be they're all sorcerers because that's just the way their family works.
Like, I was born in this town and I just randomly set all the houses on fire and then I got kicked out. Is that like a good storyline for a sorcerer? Like someone who gets outcast because
I
they're
would
born
say,
like a sorcerer?
I mean, that's almost tropish. I
Oh,
would say.
okay.
That's not a bad thing. I think tropes are tropes for a reason, but yeah, that's a common one. Like, kid was born, had crazy powers, and the parents tried to keep it under control, but eventually got out of control. Maybe the kid lost control to the point where he blew up the house and accidentally killed his own family or her own family, and then was outcast.
Okay.
And an adventurer was born.
Good times.
And I know, right? Okay,
Guess
so
I'll just walk this way.
so some of the things that dragon sorcerers get is, number one, much like Dragonborn, you have to decide what kind of dragon is your ancestor.
Yeah, that's the trend. Every time you're talking about dragons,
Yes.
you're getting into the subtypes of
Classifications.
dragons. Yes.
And of course, we've gone over that. There's red, blue, green, black, white,
Fucking
there's
Lucky
silver,
Charms.
It can be any of those. But depending on the kind of dragon that you choose, it's going to affect some of the features that you get later on. Obviously, with the types of breath that those dragons get.
Yes.
So in previous editions of D&D, dragon sorcerers would get literal resistances to. So if you were like a dragon sorcerer with a red ancestor, you'd get resistance to fire.
Okay, makes sense.
Which makes sense. And on top of it, 4th edition was nice enough to say, and if you already resist fire, well, it just improves your current resistance, which is
Normal
nice.
resistance is half, right?
That's in 5th edition. This is in 4th edition.
Oh,
in 4th
okay.
edition, there was actual number attached to the resistance. But back to 5th edition, you don't get a resistance to your breath weapon type.
Yeah, because that
Dragonborns get that.
It sounds more 4th edition-y to get like so very specific.
Yeah,
and to,
that's
like,
true.
To
That's
like
true.
add these little numbers to everything that you're doing.
Right. Now, Dragonborn in 5th edition, they do get the resistance to their own breath type, but dragon sorcerers do not, and I found that interesting. But what you do get is later on down the road, you get like bonus to damage when you're casting spells that have the damage type of your ancestry.
Cool. Okay.
So like if you're a blue dragon sorcerer, casting lightning and thunder spells is going to boost. You're going to get boosted damage and all those.
That's cool.
Which is awesome.
If you are a dragonborn sorcerer with like lightning breath weapon, is it going to up your lightning breath weapon?
No, but in 4th edition, you could get a feat that would make your breath weapon, if you are a dragon sorcerer, considered arcane, and you would get all the bonus sorcerer damage.
See,
on
that's
it.
tight.
And dude, like I fucking love 4th edition, and like if you're like me and you like to get in the mechanics and like tweak it and just get it just right. Like there was such a horrible cheese build that was the Dragonborn Sorcerer. It was called the Rebreather. And I don't remember the mechanics behind it, but like basically what you did was you took all the right feats and stuff to get your breath weapon to be considered a spell, and you would boost the damage on it like crazy. And then your breath weapon was only a minor action,
right?
Which means you could do it. You couldn't do that action 3 times because it was spent theoretically, but you could do 3 minor actions a turn. Except for there was a way to game the system where like you would get to recharge your breath, and you would have motherfuckers laying down the breath 3 times a turn at level 3.
See, man, like that's metagaming.
That's metagaming.
That's like the Lazy Lord.
Yes,
like, I saw the Lazy Lord.
Oh yeah, the Lazy
build.
Lord. I love Warlords. Oh man, that's yeah. Okay, back to Sorcerer. One day, like down the road, I would like to do a 4th edition episode where, like, let's talk about 4th edition because I could talk about it all day.
We should do a metagaming episode too, just to get into it. Just
sure.
To see like what, because as a
possibilities?
player, it's probably like, well, it depends on the table, of course, but like in my experience as a player, it's probably not so great to metagame 5th edition stuff, but it's as a DM, it's like better to metagame, I feel like, in a lot of ways.
In a lot of ways, definitely. And like, you know, everyone metagames to different degrees. I highly discourage like high level, like as much as I think it's hilarious, this Rebreather Dragon Sorcerer, I would fucking never allow that on my table.
Yeah.
And no player that like I know of would even think about actually trying to run the damn thing. It's just kind of like fun to see what's possible with the mechanics.
Yes,
you know?
and I like metagaming in things that allow it, but in D&D it kind of takes away.
Yes,
like you should be running a metagaming campaign. Like I see a lot of Pathfinder stuff where like metagaming is more accepted.
Is
like,
it? It shouldn't be because it's basically the same game.
Well, maybe it's the certain players, Pathfinder players I'm talking to, because there's some college age, young college players that are like,
that's just them. That's
I
just
have my
the way they
10,000
are.
hands that do like
okay,
these punch
Nick,
attacks.
I love you, dude. But damn, you're a meta gamer.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
He tells me about some crazy stuff though.
But you know what?
It's real cool.
The most important thing is like they're obviously having a fucking blast playing that game.
Yeah,
and
they're running like evil campaigns, metagaming, and
Yeah.
they're killing each other.
Oh Jesus. Okay, back to sorcerers. So dragon blood sorcerers, they get that increase to their breath damage type. They also get an interesting increase to armor.
Okay.
And this is usually explained by the fact that dragon sorcerers, as they delve into their magic, begin to gain like dragon-like scales.
Okay.
Which I guess you don't have to, but because of it, you get a natural armor of 13 plus your dex, which is better than studded leather.
Nice.
Yeah,
Cool.
which
Definitely cool.
You're very squishy as a sorcerer.
You need that as
yeah.
like a magic.
You're like a
users are
wizard.
Squishy.
You're in cloth armor. You got basically no fucking weapons in your proficiencies. You got a D6 on the hit die. Yeah, you'll take what you can get.
Right.
At like higher levels, dragon sorcerers gain dragon wings.
Sick.
You can just fucking fly. You don't need the fly spell because you got fucking wings.
Hell yes.
And then,
wait, like permanently?
Yeah,
Like all the time?
I think so.
Because the paladin, I saw like level 20 gets to like grow some wings or something like that, or level 18.
Oh yeah, like angelic wings.
But it's for like an hour.
Yeah, no. Dragon sorcerers just get them, and they get it at level 14. At level 14,
what?
yeah. So can you imagine
so
just
early.
fucking flying up there,
early,
casting
but-
fireballs from the sky?
Yeah, man. Like, what are you?
Dude, welcome to the world of D&D where spellcasters don't fuck around.
Hell yes.
Yeah, at the high levels, like, yeah. Okay, and then finally, dragon blood sorcerers get a dragon fear type ability, which we talked a little bit about in the dragon episode. Dragons usually have like this aura of fear that they exude.
Yeah.
You get something along those lines as a dragon
Sweet.
sorcerer.
Okay.
So let's talk a little bit about the Wild Magic Sorcerer, because it's a whole lot fucking different. And again, we talked about how like it's based in chaos.
Yes.
It's based in wild unpredictability.
You're tapping the very essence of the force chaos that exists in D&D.
Exactly. And the first feature you get as a Wild Magic Sorcerer is a table called the Wild Magic Surge table, which the DM has to have on hand if you're rolling this character.
Holy crap.
Because every time you cast a spell, you have to roll a d20. And if you roll
Random
a 1,
effect, the magic beam.
yeah, and if you roll a 1, something gets rolled on the Wild Magic table. And this is a percentile dice from 0 to 100.
Okay.
And so like you have to roll a 1 on your Wild Magic roll. So it's only 5% of the time it's going to happen.
Right.
But the effects are all over the place. They're anything from like nothing important at all to like game-changing effects, like massive extra damage, or suddenly something blows up in your face, or like suddenly someone like next to you is randomly healed HP, or like just the damage
Just
type
some
is
random
changed,
extra
like just
stuff.
random
So
stuff.
it doesn't matter what spell you cast. If that one gets rolled, something crazy is going to happen.
Yep.
Maybe.
Yep. So yeah, you might get teleported, or the thing you cast it on might get teleported to another plane of existence. Like,
Can like one of your players get teleported away?
yeah, it's just
like,
like,
oh,
yeah,
no.
dude, it's just fucking random. Later on,
And then our druid vanished.
yeah,
and we
never
never
to be
saw him
seen
again. So
So
that
I'm
person
sure-
had to re-roll.
I'm sure they'd be able to come back. I'm
Or
sure they'd
you
like
split
maybe.
you split story for a while, and
I
they like
know,
make
right?
their way back.
I'm sure that like the teleport. I have to look into it, but I'm sure like the teleportation effects aren't too permanent. They're probably like teleports to the astral sea for like 1d10 worth of turns or something like that.
We teleported a fucking monster that we were fighting,
Mm-hmm.
like a world, like an area ender, to the astral plane for 1 week. And so we didn't know how long he was going to be gone. So we went on our way, and it came
Yeah.
back and killed everybody.
Yeah, there you go. Or maybe you accidentally sent
shit.
it to hell, and when it comes back, it's all fucked up.
Oh,
We
that's
won!
cool. Yeah, we did it.
But so other things they get to do, Wild Sorcerers, is they get to start to kind of bend luck and fate around them,
Right.
Being able to like spend sorcery points in order to improve not only their own attack buffs but other players' attack buffs, and maybe debuff enemy attacks.
That's
and
really
stuff like
cool.
that. Almost a real supporty type thing, like a bard or a cleric type
Yes, and
style thing.
I've seen firsthand now how very, 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 very useful those types of things are in
Fuck
this
yeah,
game.
they make a world of difference.
They make or
Yeah.
break. They basically like boost your level.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, I would say so.
Ridiculous.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So, and then later on, like you get to roll twice on like your Wild Magic Surge effects and
Oh.
stuff like that. Like,
Wait, so if the one hits, you get to do 2 wild magic effects, or
you roll twice. So I think
so
that
2
means
different wild magic things might happen.
possibly
if you roll
but
double
I think
ones.
I think it's a 0.001% chance of that happening or something like that. But like, it's a higher percent chance that one goes off. I don't know probability all that well. You think I would? I play a game based around it, but
Math,
no,
though.
no.
Stupid math.
Yeah. So those are the two bloodlines in this game.
I thought there were going to be more.
Well, there are. There's one, but like it's not in the player's handbook, so we're not going to cover it too much here. But it's a storm one, and you get stuff like the ability to fly at some point, and like I think at the lower levels, like every time you cast a spell that has to do with your bloodline, you can fly for that turn, which is pretty cool.
Really awesome.
I think that is the one bloodline we have right now that you do actually get the resistance to lightning and thunder.
Okay.
You don't get that with the other two. That could be wrong. But yeah, so there's a storm sorcery one in the Skag, and it's fun. Like that's the only one I've actually played.
You become Storm from X-Men.
Yes, Storm from X-Men is basically a storm sorcerer as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, and then hopefully there'll be more to come. I mean, they gotta, for me, like the important ones is they need an elemental one, a shadow one, a celestial one, and a fiend one. And I think I'd be happy at that point. I'm sure there's more, and I'm sure people are gonna want them. But like, we'll see how long it takes for them to come out with more stuff. Did you have any questions about the sorcerer?
We got bloodlines. We got. I like that they get their like extra armor
That's the dragon one.
Yeah,
specifically,
I like
but
that
it's really
one.
cool.
That one's
Yeah.
really cool.
I have tried many times. I've sat down with a pen and paper trying to come up with some sort of multi-class that works in the way I want it to, where I can use that and yet, okay, so I like Gish characters, which a Gish character is a character that like both is capable in combat and as a magic user.
Oh, yeah.
So I'm like, how can I use the sorcerer to get my spell casting and use this like armor thing from the dragon bloodline and yet get into fighter and make that useful? And like, I came up with something, but it never hits the way I want.
Yeah, like you need that weapon proficiency.
Yeah.
What about the Eldritch Knight? Like, I know we talked about that in the fighter episode.
The Eldritch Knight is cool. It's probably out of all the gishes that are available in the game, it's probably the least effective. It's
like their spellcasting, they're more of a fighter.
They're more of a fighter than a spellcaster. Their spellcasting's pretty limited.
So what if you went with like the Eldritch Fighter and multi-classed into sorcery?
Not going to work because you need intelligence is the spellcasting ability of the Eldritch Knight. Charisma is the spellcasting ability of the sorcerer.
You're splitting your stats at that point, and you have to roll really high.
Exactly. So, I mean, and then there's, you can do the blade lock, and now they got the hex blade in the Unearthed Arcana, which looks amazing.
Yeah,
and
I've seen some of that.
Yeah, but I'm a sucker for the Gish characters. As a matter of fact, we'll probably do a entire episode on like the Gish and what that is, and the different kinds, and like what is considered a Gish and what maybe isn't.
Yeah, I've never heard that term. So.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of it until I started playing D&D like 2 years in. I'm like, what the fuck is that?
Okay.
And I'm gonna be honest. Right now, I don't know where that word comes from, but you bet your ass when we do the episode, I'm gonna have done my homework.
Yes, we should find out.
Yeah. So I think with that, we're pretty much done with talking about the sorcerer. I mean, I don't have much else to say off the top of my head.
Have you played one?
I have only played a sorcerer once, and he was a multi-class fighter, so he doesn't really count. And that was in that
and
first
that's what
game.
you were trying to do.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do. The thing I was trying to do, and so no, not really. Again, like I've never been drawn to the sorcerer. Like I've been drawn more to the wizard who like learns his spells over time and kind of earns it, and there's a certain finesse to it. Like I have a certain amount of respect for that. It's kind of like the Jean versus Mugen debate when it comes to Samurai Champloo.
Yeah.
I'm Jean all the way. I know everyone else on the fucking earth loves Mugen, but I love Jean.
Well,
there's
prove,
a certain amount of respect I have for his
They
capabilities.
prove at the end of the show, like in their canon, that like it's better to be Jean.
Right.
Because you're going to be able to, in like the final fights and stuff, like Mugen doesn't stand up.
Oh,
too.
He doesn't?
Yeah.
I haven't finished the
He's
show.
like, you're using so many, like, there's like a master that comes, is like rival to Jean, kind of. And he's like, your movements are so like unnecessary and wild, and that it can confuse an opponent, and it makes you difficult to, like, you're unpredictable, but like you're wasting so much energy, and he just like puts him down basically.
Oh, damn. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I didn't know that.
And the certain style that like matches up with that guy and Jean, like they have to have combat at the very end to like, because they both get taken down, but Jean has to. Well, that's major. We're in major spoiler territory.
Yeah,
for Samurai
I
Champloo.
seriously haven't seen it.
Shout out to Samurai Champloo
Yeah,
creators
I
and
love
DJ
that show.
Nujabes. It's a wonderful show.
yes,
The music
yes.
is great. You should
Fantastic.
definitely watch it if you haven't. It's short. It's easy to watch.
Yeah, I just haven't done it. Like I've probably like collectively with all the episodes I've seen, I've probably seen like a third, maybe even half of it, but I've just never seen it all.
Dude, yeah, you should finish it.
Yeah, I hear it's great.
It's good.
But yeah, it's like, so I've always been drawn to the wizard. And like I also like the warlock because I like, again, it kind of comes to like, even though the warlock hasn't earned their power, in a way they have, because like their ambition and their drive drove them to make a very risky deal and do whatever it takes to get that power.
Yeah.
And like again, like
it's more clericy in nature. Like they're
like,
gifted their power, but they went to the length. They're devoted.
Yeah, exactly. And also it's very dangerous what they did, because like with the deity, at least the deity's got your back. Like these patrons do not have your back.
They're self-interested.
Yeah. And then the bard, again, I am a musician. I love music, and music, as I know, and I'm sure as you know, as a musician yourself, like takes years of practice and skill, and you're never as good as you want to be. And like being a master truly means like to be driven and to be such a master that your music is magical. A lot of respect for that.
Yeah,
so
if you
I'm
are
more
as good as you
drawn-
want to be, I want to be you.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm more drawn to these caster classes over the sorcerer, which again isn't to say I don't like the sorcerer. It's just there's so many classes in D&D, and I just prefer some of the other ones.
What do you think is a good matchup for like race to go with the sorcerer? If I know that touches a little bit into the metagame territory,
No, that's
but
fine.
like
Yeah.
what's
I think it's a good thing to talk
so
about.
you want your like charisma up high?
Yeah, charisma is the most important thing about being a sorcerer in all iterations of D&D, but especially this one, I suppose.
So like the human makes a good anything. Pretty
Yes,
much.
the human always makes good at anything. But traditionally, sorcerers, drow, dragonborn, halflings, half elves, definitely.
Half-elves. I like that. I actually really want to run a halfling at this point.
Halflings are cool. Dude.
I'm all
I
over
love
the place,
halflings.
but like halfling rogue looks just so much fun.
Yeah, I love halflings. But those are probably the races most
halfling
traditionally.
sorcerer though.
Yeah,
I need to
halfling
run
sorcerers,
magic
you know.
classes so I can get my bearings. You know.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, those are the classes that or the races most inclined to play good sorcerers. I think at this point we're kind of droning on, so I think we can wrap it up. And
I
bring
think
it
I
to
don't
an
really
end.
have any questions anyway.
Okay.
So that's it for the Dungeoncast, everybody. We're calling it a game.
All
See you
right.
next time.
You guys have a good one.